want to make sure you are looking out for before you go into a hotel or once you get into a hotel. So the first thing that they say here is do not put your luggage on the bed. And why is that? Because, and I'm reading here right from the article, it says bed bugs are gross little vampires, like mosquitoes, but worse. The People's Voice. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is The People's Voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am The People's Voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it's greatly appreciated. Let me take the time to, of course, say thank you to all of those who have been listening to the podcast. We are at episode 51. Count them down, ladies and gentlemen. 51 straight episodes, 51 straight weeks. This is called dedication. This is what consistency looks like, and it doesn't stop here. It's going to get even better. Watch me. But thank you to everyone who has listened to the podcast for this amount of time. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you and hello to those who may be listening to the podcast for the first time. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join me and join us to listen to what we have to say. And again, our podcast is about providing information so that you can share that information with your family, your community, and within your network. So thank you, as always. If this information that we provide is helpful, we do ask that you share it. So you can do that by subscribing to the podcast. The podcast drops every Friday on all podcast platforms. And then we put out the video on YouTube on Fridays at 3 p.m. So thank you, and thank you. So today, I want to talk about signs that you should know, or signs that you should be aware of when you are in, I don't want to say signs, things you should know, or tips. There you go. Tips for when you go to a hotel, right? So things that you should know, or things that you want to look out for, or in your scouting of hotels, things that you want to be aware of when you're deciding to book a hotel. Okay, so why am I doing this? Well, a recent article came out in Reader's Digest, I think, about hotels and some of the unfortunate things that were found out about hotels. And so I want to, kind of talk about that article a little bit, talk about the things that they found out in that article. And then I want to go into some of the, obviously, the things that you should look out for. And then, of course, offer some solutions and remedies if, in the event, these things that I want to highlight today unfortunately happen and you find yourself in a tough situation. So I'm going to go through that list. I'm going to talk about tips or things that you should know before you book a hotel, or when you're in the hotel room after you've booked it and you find out some things. So I'm going to go through that list and we'll go from there. So as always, we start with definitions, right? So, and I'm talking about hotels in this particular case. I'm not going to go through, bed and breakfast sites. I'm not going to do, what do you call it? Motels. I'm not doing, I forgot the room share platform. I'm not going through all of those. I'm going through specifically hotels because even though there are plenty of, options now when it comes to staying in places when you travel, right? You no longer have to stay at a hotel. You can, there are a million different opportunities to stay in other places. You can stay in homes and things of that nature. But today I want to talk about hotels specifically. And I want to talk about what an hotel is. So we're going to do a definition for that first. And then I'll kind of get into what things that you should look for and the things that you should be concerned with. So, hotel, defining a hotel. So let me give the definition here, and we'll go from there. So, hotel. Here's the definition for a hotel. A hotel is a commercial establishment offering lodging to travelers and sometimes to permanent residents, often having restaurants, meeting rooms, stores that are available to the general public. So that's what a hotel is. And that, again, I've given the basic information for what a hotel is because I want to start with a definition. So that's the definition. Again, lodging. This is key. Lodging for a commercial establishment offering lodging to travelers and sometimes to permanent residents. Okay. And that lodging can be for various reasons. Some people book hotels for leisure travel. Some people book hotels for business travel. It just depends. But that's the purpose of a hotel. And so what I want to talk about today basically came up again from this article that I had read in Reader's Digest. And basically they talked about 12 warning signs that you're staying at a bad hotel. And it was like reading through it was like, whoa, okay. So let me go through that list first, and then I'll talk about some other things that you should be aware of, before you book a hotel, or again, once you're at the hotel, things that you can do. So the first thing that they talked about here was the photos of the actual rooms. And, if you travel and you've stayed at hotels, and, I've traveled extensively, not so much in the last few years, obviously, but because of the pandemic, but, I've stayed at a few hotels to say the least. And, from some of the, diamond status hotels down to the, I'm not going to name a brand, but the hotel that is at the bottom of the list, the bottom of the ranking, 1 star, if you will. So, but in any event, the first thing you want to do, or I guess set your mind to, if you don't know the area, if you don't know someone who stayed there, if you've never stayed in that city or in that specific hotel before, just understand that the hotels, when they market these hotels, they doctor some of the photos, right? Now, those who are professionals at doing this, they call them staging professionals. They might take offense to the word doctoring, but that's what it is. They will either stage the room to make it look bigger than it actually is, or, set the lighting in a certain way, or, take a picture at the perfect time of day to get the right amount of sunlight coming in. Or they may also, once that photo is done, they then begin to Photoshop that picture. And that means that the sheets look much whiter than they actually are. The pillows look much fluffier than they actually are. And you can do this. Yes, you can. I am, on top of many things, also have Photoshop in my background. And professionally, I have had to doctor, if you will, manipulate some photos for business purposes. So I know what it is that they do. But anyway, let me get back. So I'm going through the 12 red flags that you're at a bad hotel. And Again, this was from an article in Reader's Digest. So the first thing it says here that the photos are doctored. And I'm going to just read here from the article. It says, first, give the photos on the hotel site a good look and compare them from photos with real guests on travel sites. Hotels that obviously have a good reputation, they'll have nothing to hide. And the quality of the photos should be comparable to what you see from a user photo. And that's a great point. When you book a hotel, I've done it 1,000 times. I'll jump on the Google reviews or Yelp and things of that nature to see if there is a comparison in terms of the photo that has been shown on the website for the hotel compared to the picture that has been taken by a traveler or somebody who recently stayed there. And that's usually a good barometer to find out whether the pictures have really been doctored or if it's comparable. Now, obviously, it might not be the same because, again, these companies are investing in professional photographers and editors, things of that nature, but it should be comparable. If you see a distinct difference between the view from the balcony and the view from the balcony from a user or a traveler that stayed at that hotel, oh, beware, beware, beware. So that's the first thing. Check out the photos, do a comparison. The next thing is, and again, I'm reading from an article here from Reader's Digest. They say do a comparison between the website and Google. And this is also very good and kind of what I was talking about before. With the hotel room photos, you can kind of do a comparison to see if those rooms really match up between people who have traveled and also what's on the hotel website. You can do the same thing with actually seeing the physical location of the hotel. This is key. I will briefly just tell a story. Years ago, I traveled down to Florida for the first time and thought I caught a discount, stayed in Hialeah. Those who live down in Florida, they know exactly what I'm talking about. I looked at the picture on the website. I said, oh yeah, I'm gonna stay there. And I got down there. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? And again, at the time, wasn't using Google. I don't even think Google Street View was available, but nightmare of nightmares, and definitely one of those where you stay one night and like, I'm going to actually pay the extra money and get to where I actually want to be, so I don't have to stay here. So that's another thing you can do. Check out the website and they'll have the photos of the pool and they'll have the photos of the area, and then go on into Google and see if it's comparable. Because a lot of times Street View can show you pretty much everything you need to know. If that's somewhere you want to stay. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not shaming anybody if you stay at these hotels, right? I'm just saying if you want a certain experience, you want to be able to make sure that that experience is comparable to what your expectations are. So that's another thing. Check the website and then check Google Street View, and you'll be able to kind of see, where that hotel actually sits. Here it says, and kind of repeating some of the things that I've already said, check the reviews. Now, reviews are huge for me. I do 99% of my things that I purchase or do are based on reviews. And, I'll do extensive research on reviews. So I'm not just going to read the 5-star. I'll also read the 1-star to kind of see where it falls in the middle and then make a decision. Check the reviews for the hotel. Again, Yelp and Google reviews, and there are a few other sites that allow you to see the reviews from the actual people who have traveled there. And a lot of times, even though the hotel may be rated 5-star, you start reading through some of those reviews and you'll be like, might not be a 5-star. And again, these are all things that you can do before you get to the hotel. So I'm just going through some of the signs or tips that you want to have, or I'm giving you some of the tips or things that you need to know before booking a hotel, so your experience is not disappointing or is to your expectations. So that's the third thing. Check the reviews. In that also, when checking the reviews, it mentions here in the article as well, look at some of the responses from the hotel, because a lot of times, especially when you're talking about some major brands, they have ambassadors or they have customer service people that will respond to the negative review if there's a negative review, like in Yelp or on Google. And if that is the case, check to see what the response is from the hotel. If it's, we apologize for your, a lot of times you'll see, we apologize for your experience. Please let us reach out to us and we will do whatever we can to, write your experience. That's usually standard, and you usually see that from most major brands. But if you see things where the negative review, the response from the hotel is combative and like, well, we checked your stay and you didn't stay here, and sometimes you get some really crazy responses from some of these sites, some of these establishments, that's also a red sign before you book. So just some things to look out for. The price. Now here we go. This is a big one, right? This is a big red flag, if you will, because let's say you're staying at a diamond class hotel, or a brand that you're familiar with that has a reputation for having exquisite tastes and high fees, when it comes to staying at these establishments. And you maybe say, well, I don't want to pay for that. I'll maybe go to this hotel that's block away around the corner. But it's in a very exclusive area, a very exclusive part of the city. And you see that the price is extremely much lower than its competitor. You want to stop, take a deep breath, and go, is this somewhere I want to stay? Because that differentiation in price can be a huge indicator of the level of service that you might receive at that establishment. Now, listen, during, I know people will say, well, during the pandemic, there was a lot of discounts. Guaranteed, right? Ultimately the hotel needs to have people in the rooms to make money. Nothing that's clean. But we have now progressed out of that, right? We know prices are extremely high on everything. Just did a podcast on that. And so in this case, when we're talking about a travel experience, you want to make that comparison to say, if it's that much lower, we probably have an issue, and that's probably not somewhere you want to stay. Now, again, I want to be clear. If it's within your budget, you're just traveling for work, or, hey, this is what I can afford, I'm not in any way shaming that or shaming anyone for that. I've stayed at a lot of low price hotels as well. I'm just saying, if you want your experience to be at a certain level, these are some of the things that you need to look out for. So checking the price as well is always good. Now, the next couple of ones is going to get a little creepy, okay? And the only reason I say that is because we're going to talk about some of the unfortunate experiences that can happen at a hotel. Now, I'm going to transition here and talk about what happens when you're actually at the hotel. Okay, this right here is a transition. So I just talked about some of the things to look out for before you go into the hotel, right? Or some of the things that you want to do kind of as a heads up to avoid going into a situation where you have a bad experience, right? Some things that you can kind of head off before you even get into that type of situation. So now I'm going to talk about some of the things that you want to avoid while you're in the hotel. Okay. So now one of the first things that it mentions here, and I am now reading from a article from the New York Times, and they did an article back in 2019 about this. So this is right during the pandemic, but still, these are signs that you want to make sure that you are not. I mean, these are definitely things that you want to make sure you are looking out for before you go into a hotel or once you get into a hotel. So the first thing that they say here is do not put your luggage on the bed. And why is that? Because, and I'm reading here right from the article, it says bed bugs are gross little vampires, like mosquitoes, but worse. Putting your luggage on the bed can give them a free ride to your location. Now, again, I'm talking about these are the things that have been discovered or occurrences that have happened to people who have gone to hotels and have had an unfortunate experience. And one of those things are bed bugs. And a way to avoid this, even at the best of hotels, right? Because it's not necessarily the hotel that may cause the issue. A lot of times it has to do with the person that may have come in to the hotel that stayed there previously, and maybe the hotel was not properly cleaned. And so you have a lot of some challenges when it comes to bed bugs and things of that nature. So the first thing that's recommended is not to put your luggage on the bed, which, again, I've done this. So I'm telling you, after reading this, I was like, whoa, that's definitely something that I have taken note of and will not be doing again. I can guarantee you. So that's the first thing. The second thing that they recommend here, and again, I'm reading from an article from the New York Times, is be skeptical of the drinking glasses. They want you to take a look at the drinking glasses. Now, I know some people are listening to this and saying, I'm just trying to stay at a hotel. I'm not really trying to do all of these things. But you have to keep in mind, especially today, that a lot of these hotels have had to cut back on certain important aspects of the hotel experience. And one of those has been housekeeping. There are article after article about the staff reductions that took place as a result of the pandemic, and which is causing a lot of these instances where there are bed bugs because sheets haven't been properly washed. There are dirty glasses, especially when you go in and you see those two glasses on the bar, even though a lot of hotels have taken that away during the pandemic. But that is another sign that you may be in a hotel that is not that clean. So just be aware of that. Another tip that was from this New York Times article was take a picture. Laundry is expensive, it says here. And laundry has become super expensive to the point that a lot of these hotels are basically reusing sheets. So let's just say, for instance, you stay at a hotel and you sleep on top of the comforter. Well, hotel, and I'm not saying this is for all hotels, so please be clear, but some hotels, and especially the housekeeping staff, and again, when you're talking about reductions in housekeeping staff, sometimes they don't clean the sheets on a regular basis between guests because, hey, you can see that this guest never turned down the comforter, so they laid on top of the comforter, this is again something that you want to be aware of. If in the event that you are going to lay on the sheets, you may either request, and you can request these things now. Let's be clear. You can go to your hotel front desk and ask, were those sheets turned down in that room? If not, I would like to have them turned down, or I would like to have them removed and new sheets added. You can request these things at the hotel, but you want to be aware of this because a lot of things have changed since the pandemic. So again, I'm just talking about some of these signs or some of the tips that you can utilize when you travel to a hotel, because once you're there are certain signs that it may not be what you thought it was going to be, or that you may have to request either another room, or you need to have housekeeping come back and kind of redo the room to your specifications. Matter of fact, let me play this clip here from Inside Edition. Inside Edition was talking to, they did a piece last year where they went into hotels and they had a cleaner come in and kind of do a hard cleaning of the couches in the hotels, in the hotel rooms. When you come into some of the hotel rooms, especially if you're in a larger room and there might be a couch or ottoman and things of that nature. Well, take a listen to this and some of the findings that they found when they went in there.
But what about that couch? We asked professional steam cleaner Jesse Fudrini of Concept Cleaning to find out. Fudrini gave it a thorough cleaning.
Let's see what we found. Oh, wow. Look at that.
This is what came out.
This couch was really dirty. You can actually see particles in it. The smell is just horrific.
Would the chair be any better?
This is actually extremely dirty as well. This is a very nice hotel, so it does surprise me a bit.
I mean, and you listening to this and you can't see the amount of dirt that this man is holding in this glass jar, but it is alarming to say the least. So again, when you're at these hotels now, something like this is hard to gauge, right? Like, I don't know how you would be able to gauge whether or not the chair is dirty, but it kind of goes back to the first point that I made about not putting your luggage on the bed. You might not want to put your luggage on some of these couches, and you definitely might not want to sit on some of these couches, especially with no clothes on. Now, I ain't trying to get in nobody's business, but sometimes, you might want to think about it twice, because again, these hotels have cut back on a lot of these services. And for some of the hotels, especially when you're talking some of the mid-grade hotels at 3-4 range in terms of stars, 3-4 stars, even, and this was actually a 5-star hotel that he was at. So I'm not, that this first piece that Inside Edition did. You just want to be aware of these things, okay? You want to be aware of these things. And if you see these things, right, because sometimes your eyes do not deceive you. You may see it firsthand. Again, you can go back to the front desk to say, hey, I've checked into this room, doesn't look clean. Either A, I would like another room, or B, I would like for housekeeping to come up and kind of clean the room before I check in. Some of the other things that they've kind of warned about is checking the remote, or staying away from using the remote, or wiping down the remote for the TV before you use it. I mean, you got to think thousands of people come through these rooms every year, especially in some of your more popular cities. So you come into the room and you pick up that remote. You don't know who's touched it before. You don't know how many people has touched it before. So you might want to just have some handy wipes or some disinfectant wipes. Wipe down the remote yourself so you can ensure that they are not dirty, or at least they are clean to your standards. They're not going to be fully clean, obviously, but at least you'll get some of the potential germs off of that if you do that as well. And in terms of, and then there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. I think that's it. And then, yeah, like I said, those are some of the things that you want to look out. So, just to recap, and I'll stop it here because I think this is a good stopping place. So we covered, first of all, some of the things that you want to look out for before you book the hotel, right? These are things that you can see, that you can do, investigations that you can do before you hit book and jump on a plane. And then you get to the room and you're like, what am I doing here, right? So we covered that in the first half. And then in the second half, I'm talking about specifically things that you can look for or avoid once you get into the hotel room, into the hotel. You always want to take that information as well, because you don't want to be 3-4 days into your stay to start recognizing things. Kind of do that up front, and in that way you can minimize any issues or potential issues and actually have a relatively great stay. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Tips and signs, or things you should know before you book a hotel and after you book a hotel. Now, I know there are people listening to say, well, I don't go to hotels, I go to Airbnbs. And that's what I was trying to think of in the beginning. For some reason, it escaped me. I get that as well. These tips are transferable. Whether you're in a hotel, an Airbnb, motel, you want to do these things to ensure that you are going to have the best experience possible, because at the end of the day, you're spending money, whether it's you personally or your company. You want to ensure that you're able to sleep at night, right? And that you have a comparable, that you have a good experience for the amount of money that's being paid. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Hotel tips, things to look out for when you are booking a hotel, and things to look out for once you have booked and arrived at the hotel. So as always, I hope this information was helpful. If it is, please feel free to share this information. As well, you can contact us on our social media platforms if you want to leave a comment or suggestions, or you have any other recommendations that I did not cover. All information and comments are welcome. You can reach us at the People's Voice Podcast. That's on Instagram, the People's Voice Podcast. That is all one slogan. And then you can reach me on my Instagram. I can be reached at I am Trey Evans on Instagram. I am Trey Evans on Twitter, and I am Trey Evans on Facebook. That is IAMTREYEVANS. So that is my time today. Again, thank you for listening. And as always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the People's Voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute. I am Trey Evans. The People's Voice.